the sample ballot is, you need to find out, because it's really, really important. Because that's what keeps people from voting, is they don't know what to do when they get to vote. When they go to the voting place, what do I do? But if they have a sample ballot, and they have all of the issues right there in front of them, it's not that hard. Now, I'm going to tell you how to get from the 73 pages down to your precinct. Ready? The first page. This is what is really important to all of us. That's the one about municipal courts. Kari, it's really important.
Yes.
Are you Hyde Park?
I am not. John, who's your last name?
John Kennedy is Hyde Park. So you're not Hyde Park. Or you're not her today, but
John.
you're John Kennedy.
John.
Now, you get to this thing here, that's the first page of the 75 pages, and it gives you all of the candidates. And they're in alphabetical order. It does not tell you Democrat or Republican. The sheet that I gave you last week has Democrat and Republican. And if you want to take the paper now and go through it, it's not hard to do District 1 because he's running unopposed. Not a problem. District 2, it's Yates, Tyrone Yates. District 3 is okay, he's running unopposed. That's my person, he's Ted Berry. District 4 is John Kennedy. We had him last week, and he's the Democratic candidate. And today, in a little bit, we're going to have Kari Bloom, who's District 5. Now, how do you know if you're District 5 or not? And that find the colored paper, and see if you can find your community and see which of these candidates is yours. Now in District 6, it's going to be Underwood. Now I have them on the other one, but I have the master copy. And it won't tell you when you get to vote they won't tell you Democratic or Republican. You have to know. That's the trick to this first page. You have to know who's a Democrat and who's a Republican, because folks, it's really important for us to get the Democratic votes. Because you have to know that the Republicans are putting in their candidates. And we need to make sure that we're being represented tonight. And we can't be represented if you don't know who you're voting for. So find out who your candidates is.
Is there a way to get little cards with pictures of the Democratic candidates? That was so helpful in the last election. I had more conversations about judges than about FDAC.
I believe that will be coming out. I'm not sure what those guys are going to be offering you, but that would be a good thing. One of the places to go is the information place for the League of Women Voters. It's just to go to the League of Women Voters because they will have a picture and all of they'll have answered all of the questions.
But I did talk to the Judicial Committee at Hamilton County, and she is planning on coming up with a card that has each one of the names on it and pictures.
But hopefully, you guys are going to be well trained enough so that you will already know the Democrats and the Republicans before you go there. I want you to know them, who they are. Now, that's page 1. Now, then on page 2, it starts to get a little sticky. Because page 2, this is what's available to you now on the internet. You can go to Hamilton County, just Hamilton County Board of Elections. Now, it starts with Blue Ash because alphabetically Blue Ash comes before anything else.
Woo!
And what they do is they have listed everybody you can vote for. And again, here it doesn't tell you who's Democrat and who's Republican, so you need to know. You need to do your investigations beforehand, or hopefully when October comes, I will have trained you to have everybody has a sample ballot. You go once October comes and you're into voting, you go put your address in Hamilton County, and it prints out your sample ballot. And then you go through and you make sure you know everybody who you're going to vote for. And if you're smart, you will make a couple of copies of that. Or if you're doing your precinct, you will go to Webland Place, to the Hamilton County Democrats and say, I need 220 copies of this sample ballot to hand out to everybody in my neighborhood, and here, and they will run them off for you for free. The Democrats are amazing. They're interested in electing Democrats. So if you go and you have your sample ballot and you're willing to hand it out, they will help you. So get a couple copies. I get a couple hundred. So I have to go a whole bunch of pages until I get something else that's relevant to me. Let's see if I can find it in pink. It's here somewhere. Okay, here. This is Springfield Township. Now, it says for me, there are one is to be elected, town trustee, one to be elected for a 4-year term. Well, it says Davis and Rhea, and there's no indication who's the Democrat and who's the Republican. I asked, and it's Rhea, so go with Rhea. If you're in Edgemont or Springfield Township, if you're in Springfield Township. Now, the other page that is relevant to you, this goes local school districts, and Marlene is there. But the trouble is with Marlena's page is that you have to pick 3 of 5. So folks, you need to know on your sample ballot.
No. 3 of 5 in the one, and
One and
there are 2 separate races.
Two
One
separate
race
races.
for 3 people are running for a 2-year term, and 5 people are running for a 4-year term. So
That's all
you need
here.
to know the difference.
right, but you need to know who the 3 people are who are running for the school district, because when it says pick 3 of the 5, and then the next one it says pick how many of those things. Now this is an interesting page that I hadn't seen before I actually saw this. This gives every damn thing that's being voted for and all over Hamilton County. You're not interested in this page, I promise you. But if you want to go and find out that, for instance, I live in, it's very complicated for me. See, I live in Edgemont, which is Springfield Township, but I get to vote for Cincinnati Public Schools because my kids, because we're east of 75, our kids go to Cincinnati Public Schools. So I get to vote for Marlena. But I do not get to vote for the Cincinnati School District tax levy. That's here. It says 10-year emergency requirements. And then for Hamilton County, there are 2 issues. I didn't know that. Did anybody know there are 2 issues, tax issues coming up? If you want to know about them, find out about them. There are 2 tax renewals. And then for the city of Cincinnati, where there's a proposed charter amendment that's certified by the board on September 10th. Anyway, there are issues for me. It's, yes.
We could have speakers about those 2 issues, those tax issues.
I don't know about
That might
that.
help. if we do that.
What are the issues?
I don't know.
The tax issues, county issues are 5-year family services and treatment programs
Family
and a
services.
4-year developmental disability
Those are renewals.
renewals.
Those are renewals.
And the school district is also a renewal. But you get to vote on them. Do you understand? It's here on page 75, right here. Now, when you go to your sample ballot in October, you can actually print out just the things that you're going to vote for, which is really important. And I really promise you, it's really nice to have that sample ballot in your hand when you go there. Because then you don't have to ask anybody, is he a Republican, is he a Democrat? You know, you have it in your pocket, it's right there. And you can share it with your friends. And if you go and vote early, you can go in, vote for them already, come out, and all those other people are waiting there. Like last time they had a lot of the municipal court people out there, and then you would hand your sample ballot to them, and they hand it to the next guy who's coming through. which is real nice, because you've got them in the right people indicated on the sample ballot. So it's here,
Vote early
it's
and often.
vote early and often. Right, like 70 pages of stuff you don't need, I promise you. There's a tax issue for everybody. Every little township has council people and stuff going in right now. But you need to know who they are, and it's right here. Please go to Hamilton County Board of Elections. It's right there. And you don't have to print out 75 pages, just pull down the ones you want for you. So you can go around and start understanding what's going on. So, that's my word of comfort for today, or challenge to you. Get to know what's gonna come out on your sample ballot. And then October, I'm gonna make sure everybody has their sample ballot. You're gonna have attendance or something, mandatory sample ballot to get a candy from Alberta.
No lunch without a ballot.
Well, I don't know about that, but no candy from Alberta. I want that to happen. Okay, so, now we're doing announcements. We're doing announcements.
Good, Jeff. So you probably know if I stand up, it's going to be about money and politics. I'm sorry for the late notice. I just got this a couple of days ago, and I thought Jeff Clements and Azer Cole. Jeff is the founder of American Promise, the second national organization that is fighting for a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics. So I first thought that there was just going to be another Skype or something, but they will be here in the flesh. I've seen them, I've met them, I've talked with them. This is something that if you have any interest, I can't imagine why anybody would be concerned about money and politics. But if you do care, this will be a good meeting to attend. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I have three things. Check the table back there. There's apples that I got up at 3 o'clock this morning and picked them fresh off my trees in my orchard.
Yeah, right.
And there are homemade chocolate chip cookies there. They are not from Costco. And Landford on Friday is having a free workshop about end-of-life issues. I put flyers up there about that. Pre-planning thing. And did anybody get this thing in the mail about how the Chinese are taking over Ohio?
Yeah.
I brought a couple of these extra ones. Doesn't this make you sick? Is Bill Seitz involved in this? Yes, Bill Seitz. We ought to go to his house or something.
Why is the Inquirer saying nothing about it? It's so.
I don't know, but I just wanted, I want to kill somebody when I saw this. And it's just disgusting. And there's a number to call. You think we could call that number?
Yes.
Over and over and over.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about it. I'm gonna pass this around anyway if you didn't see
But the
it.
Chinese have an interest in those energy companies that they're bailing out. So that's why they are using their big money to go against House Bill 6. When House Bill 6 only continues the dependence on fossil fuels and eliminates 4,000 green energy jobs. So that's why it's incredibly important that we sign the petition that's out there to get this on the ballot.
When is that getting around? I mean, I emailed the one woman who said she said they had to get past the legal hurdles, but I understand.
They did, they had language, and now the language is ready to go, so it's just starting. So I'll see if I can get somebody here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
Speak
kind
on
of
that.
thing
It's
would be
gonna be a
great to
while.
put in the newsletter if
Yeah.
there's a place where you could go to sign.
Sunday, September 22nd, there's a Hands Across Martin Luther King. It's for, against, of course, gun violence, neighborhood violence, but also peace in the neighborhood. I have the flyer, but I don't see who's sponsoring it. But 4 o'clock, people are gathering for the rally at the corner of Martin Luther King and Reading. And then 4 o'clock. And then at 4:30 is the actual march. And then it says, come stay for food, drink, and fellowship. And various organization tables will be set up to learn more. But, this was being passed out Saturday morning at the anniversary of the three people, of course, at the First Unitarian Church.
What's the date again?
Sunday the 22nd. So Martin Luther King in Reading, A lot of development is going to happen sometime, but there's certainly a large area for people to get.
See if anybody else wants lunch.
You can sign up for
Anybody
lunch.
else want lunch? Sign up for lunch. Sister Judy's lunch.
Martha has an announcement.
All right, thank you. Bear in mind that on October 2nd, there will be hopefully a huge march for housing at City Hall, starting, I believe, at 2 o'clock, led by the Homeless Coalition and certain other organizations. Terribly important. I just, this note, in case you're interested, I wrote a letter to the Inquirer the other day about Skylar Richardson. You read about, important for us to support her idea. There were women in back ages that were crucified, burned at the stake because they were not pure. We may not know what happened to her in her baby. We do know that the lack of easy to get and private abortions is the cause of such women not knowing what to do if they get pregnant, unmarried, pregnant. So, you can comment on the Inquirer articles, of course. I wrote a letter, saying we're at fault. We're at fault. If this babe was not stillborn or whatever happened, we are at fault. Because we haven't provided for such young women. She should not go to prison. Whatever happens, she should not, in my opinion.
Margaret Atwood, the author of Handmaid's Tale, that was on NPR this morning, saying that we've taken a few steps backwards in terms of women's reproductive rights.
Just want to announce for you on Sunday from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at Purcell Marion High School will be the 29th annual all-you-can-eat brunch and raffle that will be supporting Venice on Vine. That's Sister Judy and the work that she's doing down there with our felons that are now released, that they have work and they deliver our lunches for those who order their lunches. So there are cards on the back table. If anybody's interested, pick one up, you can order a ticket.
Okay. On Thursday.
Can't hear you.
Red light. We need to, okay. Okay, on Thursday, September the 12th, which is this Thursday, from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, there is a solidarity rally with Planned Parenthood. And the Planned Parenthood it's at Planned Parenthood Western Hills Health Center. And that looks like it's 2016 Ferguson Road. And that's at 45238. And basically, since they have stopped funding for some of the Planned Parenthood things, 2 of the centers in Cincinnati is closing. And so this is one of the ones that are going to close.
Would you give the address again?
The location is very close to Western Hills High School.
Yeah. Okay, again, it is 2016 Ferguson Road. That's Cincinnati 45238. And it's later in the evening. It's from 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock during the evening. That is September the 12th. It is this Thursday.
Anything else?
How are we doing? Is that it? We're almost up to you, Kari. Almost there. Okay. What happens now is that we end our announcements, and then we start to have Kari Bloom. And I want to just make sure everybody knows where Kari Bloom is. Kari Bloom is Municipal Court District 05, and that's Springdale, Sharonville, Glendale, Evendale, Blue Ash, Montgomery, Reading, Sycamore, Deer Park, Madeira, Indian Hill, Terrace Park. It's that area over here. But she does have an opponent, so it's important that we get to vote for her. If you're in those areas, make sure that you know who Kari is and that you're voting for the right person. So you have your, and here she is, ladies and gentlemen, for today's speaker we have Kari Bloom, Municipal Court Judge.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome and reception. I'm very, very, very excited to be here with you all. I've heard the best things about this group, and I've been very jealous of many of my friends and colleagues who have been able to come and speak with you all. And finally, it's my turn. And I finally got my button. So thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to sit in and listen to your announcements. It's really helpful to keep an eye on what's happening in the community and where all of my people are going to be, because we are each other's people in this really kind of wild, crazy time. So as you heard, I'm running for Municipal Court Judge, and I'm a first-time candidate. This is the first year that I'm eligible. You have to be a lawyer for about 7-ish years. And I've been a lawyer for 8 years, so I'm on the ballot this time. I am running in Municipal Court District 5, which is the kind of salmon pinkish area on most of the maps. That's how it prints out. It's the northeastern side of the county. And the person who's the incumbent in that area has been the judge for about 18 or 19 years without any real challenger. And so that's where I come in. And with a lot of help from many of you in the room, who I consider my very good friends now, we have made really good contacts in that area. We've knocked on doors. We've been to almost every festival, street fair, art exhibit, any community event that's happening. Either I've been there, or my sisters have been there, or I send my mom out, or Rob's been there, or he's gotten someone to go for me, because we want to make sure that the community knows that I care about them. We care about them, because in municipal court, that's of course the place that you're most likely to come in contact with the court in Hamilton County. And you should know that you are welcome there, no matter what happens, and the judge cares about you and cares about your case, no matter which side of the V you might be on. So like I said, we've been out talking to people, spreading the message, spreading the awareness that there is an election this year. A lot of people, even devout Democrats, are like, wait, we just voted for judges last year. Well, yeah, we're going to keep voting for judges. And now, thanks to the hard work from you guys and groups like you, people are excited about voting for judges. And it's kind of the first time it's been that way in Hamilton County, and it's a cool feeling. It's a cool feeling. Because for all of us who, I work at the public defender's office, and for all of us who have worked in the court system for a while, we've had a hard time getting people interested in judges. Because if you don't come before the judge for any reason, it doesn't stick in your craw. It doesn't give you heartburn the same way that a suggestion that we buy Greenland might stick in your craw or cause you heartburn, And so it's very exciting to us to have such great support in spreading our message. Now, I heard that there could be a lot of questions, so I'm happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I can stand up here and talk forever and ever about the municipal courts and about what, when I'm elected, will change in the court, and that includes bail reform. I know you heard from John last week. John and I have worked, John's my boss, but John and I have worked really closely on reforming the bail system in Hamilton County, because if you are down on your luck or poor or don't have access to your money, that does not make you a criminal. That does not make you more dangerous than someone who has money. And we often talk a lot about when we're trying to convince people of bail reform, we explain to them, you know, we have R.I.P. Jeffrey Epstein, who had a lot of money, and turns out was allegedly, because he wasn't convicted, but was allegedly committing some really heinous things. And so the opposite of that is necessarily true, and it is supported by data, which I am a lawyer on purpose because numbers and data and statistics are better left for someone else to figure out and share with me, but I believe them, and I believe science. And what it says is that money does not equal safety. And we've kind of been taught that our whole lives. If you can pay to get out of jail, if you can pay for a real lawyer, if you can pay to go to a better school, if you can pay to get your kids into a certain college, then you must be better. You must be safer. You must, your opinion must mean more. And we know that is not true. And so I have spent my career working at the public defender's office, working for folks who don't have money. They're 120% below the poverty line. So the federal poverty line and then 120% below that. Those are the folks that I get the opportunity to represent. And I have met the most wonderful people in my job. And I would love to share their anecdotal stories with you, but that would be better served for another time. But it really has been the best career that I could ever have. And people always say, well, then why do you want to run for judge? And why would you ever want to leave that job? And it's not that I want to leave, but it is necessary that people with the perspective like me and John and Erica Underwood and Judge Yates and Judge Barry, and then from last year, Judge Baradon and Judge Nestor and Judge Krause, we bring a different perspective to the bench. On the municipal court bench, there are 14 judges. We have never had a majority Democrat, a Democrat majority on the municipal court. And so that's important because those 14 judges vote. They vote on policies, they vote on local rules, they vote on bail rules, they vote on certain things that happen at the Justice Center, they vote on docket times, court times, and then they also do the hiring for tens, if not hundreds of people who work in the courthouse. So you can imagine who they've been hiring all this time. And a shakeup of getting either John or Erica or me elected means that the Democrats will have control of those voting options and of that voting bloc. And well, really something I learned recently was, is that AFTAB has been waiting for one of us to get elected because a lot of his policies get shot down in the votes. So people might make statements, I've heard that maybe there hasn't been enough change. Well, it's because all of the judges who get to vote on the proposed changes are Republicans. And they don't want him to be successful, and they also don't want to change anything. So that is why we are so excited about the opportunity to elect all three of us, but certainly one of us has to get in there. So are there any questions about that? Yes.
First of all, thank you for being a public defender. That, to me, is enough to vote for you. That's special. And thanks for running for judge. Do you know the concept of restorative justice? And I wondered if you follow that, like treatment instead of incarceration, for example.
Sure. Restorative justice and procedural justice are two things that when I started out as a public defender, I was in the juvenile division, and we learned about and then pushed those two ideas. So restorative justice, like you said, is addressing the issue that brought you into the criminal justice system instead of penalizing you, to hopefully make sure it never happens again, or happens less times than it was going to. Procedural justice then goes hand in hand with restorative justice, and that's when you as the defendant believe in the process that you went through. Even if it means you go to jail, even if it means you were convicted and get a harsh sentence, if you believe you were treated fairly, you are much more likely to buy into the system and to accept the sentence that you get and to, I guess, think a little bit bigger than just, serving your sentence and getting back out. And that's kind of a lofty thing, but that we try to teach attorneys who represent children. We want them to believe we are trying to be as fair as possible. And so, of course, as a candidate, I can't make any definitive statements about how we would or wouldn't sentence on certain issues, but we know that in order for a judge to give effective sentences, they have to be educated on the options, and they have to be educated on what each option means and what the possibilities are. So we, of course, have a justice center, we have a jail, and then we have probation, which is monitored by each judge. Each judge has their own probation officers, so they are able to limit or expand how many people are on probation and what their rules are. That's their decision. And then we have a great community full of resources for people who are addicted, either to drugs or alcohol. We have parenthood programs, because sometimes it's that the stress of raising children, or raising children that go to a certain type of school that they can't get any support from, or they're getting backlash from the school, is how someone ends up in the system. And we are working really hard to make sure that people who experience, they're either, we would call them transient, or they experience homelessness or insecurity in their homes, that also leads you to the criminal justice system. So focusing on where we get help for those people is what a judge should and can do to make sure that restorative justice is kind of at the forefront.
Rob, did you want to say something?
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Kari. I turn it on. Turn it on. No. You know? It wasn't on.
There it is.
You know what? I don't need it.
Tire changer.
Yeah.
There you go. Just hold close to your mouth.
Okay. Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Kari, first I want to, before I ask my question, I just want to say that it's, frankly, it's an honor to go out and campaign for you, because I've seen you engage so many people. I love your energy, I love your willingness to engage anybody and everybody, and I just think it's a real pleasure. And I'm so pleased that you have decided to pick up the gauntlet and run for this office. Having said that, I would like to ask you, if you could, to elaborate on what it will mean if the Democrats can take over the municipal court system, what it will mean in terms of the rule changes, and maybe some specifics, if you would.
Absolutely, and thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate that. In the municipal court, I mentioned there are 14 judges, and so we'll say the judges are kind of at the top, and then there is all of the folks who work for the court, but actually for the judges. They work in what's called the assignment commissioner's office, which is where our cases are set. So the trial dates are chosen, or the motion to suppress dates are chosen, and that sort of thing. So those folks physically set the cases on a computer. Then we have courthouse staff. So each judge has a bailiff, has a clerk, and then has a sheriff's deputy or another deputy in their room. And so you can imagine for each of the 14 judges, that leads to a lot of staff. So the main thing that I think will change when the Democrats are able to bring in fair policies and fair hiring policies is that we will hire folks for those roles based on their interest in the job, based on their competency, and based on how they will make the court better. Not based on what their last name is, or who their dad is, or who their grandpa is, or their mother, not as often girls, but who they know. And that's important for the reason, kind of what Mike was saying, what he asked about, and how I commented on procedural justice. You feel like you came before a fair court where you know that you look around and you see the name tags, and not every name tag in the room has the same last name. You feel like you have a more fair shot. So that's one way, is the hiring processes. The other is that, I don't know if you guys have been down to the courthouse at all in the last 7 years or so, but the line, for the security line, often goes out the door, down the street, back around, almost all the way down to 9th Street, and wind, rain, heat, sun, blizzard, doesn't matter. Those people have to wait in the cold. And those are our jurors, those are our defendants, those are lawyers who don't have the little special badge. If you're like me and you forget your badge at home every other day, then you have to wait in that line. Or, and those are our witnesses, and anyone who doesn't have preferred access to the courthouse has to wait in that line. Now, why are we doing that? Because there isn't an actual answer. And what we need to do is we need to vote as the judges to stagger the docket, to have an 8:30, a 9, a 9:30, and a 10 o'clock docket. Now, of course, that's not happening now because there isn't an interest in making court last longer. No one wants to stay past a lunch hour or come back in the afternoon if they don't have to. And so everything is set at 9 o'clock. Everybody's set to show up at 9 o'clock. If you're not there on time, that's too bad, so sad. That is a problem, and that is a problem that we can fix by voting on changing the docket times as the municipal court judges. So those are two tangible, very tangible items that will help both defendants and attorneys who practice there.
Yes, I'm not sure it's an issue of jurisprudence, but it's appalling to me that the police have the authority to forfeit your property, seize your cash or your car, if they even think you're guilty of something, or if they have the opportunity to seize it. What can a judge do to fix that, if anything?
That is a really good question, and I appreciate that. And some of you probably know, if you read about me on my website or whatever else they send out, that I was a lobbyist for a little while, and I worked on behalf of the state public defender's office, and one of the main issues that we fought about was civil forfeiture and asset forfeiture. And what that is, if you didn't hear the question or if you don't know, is the police or law enforcement or anyone really with authority to take your property takes the cash out of your pocket, your car, laptops. I had a client who had music recording equipment in his trunk, anything of value. And if they can connect it to the case that you get charged with, they will pursue what's called civil asset forfeiture. It is a different process than a criminal case. It never gets connected. As public defenders, since it's a civil case, we aren't technically supposed to represent on that, even though it's our clients' sometimes livelihoods that are taken. And it's a much lower standard of proof. It's preponderance of the evidence that the assets are connected to a crime. As a municipal court judge, that would not be something that a policy that I could end, or that any judges could end, because it's statutory. So what we have to do is make sure that our judges are being by the book and following the law when they are faced with an affidavit asking for that forfeiture, and making sure that we vote for people who want to end civil forfeiture. It is popular to want to end it, because everyone across the political spectrum thinks it's unfair if you take someone's stuff just because. Everybody thinks that. It's the words that we use when we describe to them why we want to change it that makes it political, right? Because it happens. I'm from a small county in Northwest Ohio, Seneca County, and it happens there. People have, the trucks that they drive for their farm equipment taken from them for certain reasons. And so it's all across the political spectrum. So to that point, we need to make sure that we are really looking at and asking questions of our state representatives and our state senators, because that is where the law can change. Yes.
Hey, so this is going back to creating sort of that equality in the law.
Mm-hmm.
I am currently going through my first divorce, and I've lucked out because I'm unemployed. So I'm going to the family law clinic, which if you don't know, aren't aware, you go down to divorce court, And there's a wonderful team of volunteer lawyers who help people below the poverty line with family law, whether it's divorce or child custody. And the level, when you see someone come in for the first time, the relief that comes on their face because they know that they're going to be helped. You know, you'll get women who their ex-husbands have got custody of their children, but they're abusive or whatever. To know that they have that support structure means everything. But some of the time I get the feeling that sort of the advertising to get people down there isn't the best that it could be. And I've also talked to someone who's getting divorced, I think in Butler County, who's a student, and he's obviously as a student not making enough money. And they don't have that kind of service over there. So how can we take this thing that's obviously very central to Cincinnati? Is that just within Cincinnati, or is that for the whole of Hamilton County? How does that work exactly?
So, thank you for your question, and
It's not very clear.
it's okay. So that help center is particular to the Hamilton County Court. And so that means you have to be a Hamilton County resident, at least one of the two people has to be a Hamilton County resident. And that is under the purview of the Domestic Relations Court. And so anything that you would want to take to another county would be done through the Domestic Relations Judge or other organizations who are interested. And certainly there are lots of them. But we in the municipal court don't do any sort of relationship things because they all go to the Domestic Relations Court where that judge will be up for election in 2020.
But it's still that going into that same thing with public defender, like making sure people know
Yes,
that they have access to
a resource.
Oh yeah, and the lawyers there are like I've got Randy Block.
Yeah,
Like if
great.
I had a job, I wouldn't be able to afford her.
Sure, yeah, that's great, that's really great.
So it's just part of that, making sure we've got equality and making sure your income doesn't determine the level
Absolutely,
of representation that you have.
absolutely.
Last fall, Terry Nestor specifically mentioned one kind of change would be to shift jury choice from voters to people with driver's licenses. Is that dead? Did anything happen to that?
Thank you for your question, and the question is about where do we find our jurors? And as a trial lawyer, so separate from being a judicial candidate, but as a trial lawyer, I look for jurors everywhere. And that is because we know the jury pool always comes in and looks nothing like our client or has any background the same as our client. And I have clients say to me all the time, I thought this was a jury of my peers. This looks like a jury of your peers. And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of, you're right. And so it all goes back to the procedural and restorative justice thing we were talking about earlier. So collecting jurors and how you are summoned for jury duty is similar to the civil asset forfeiture procedure, where we need to make a push to change the state law. Okay, and it should be it could be, and it could be better if we use people's driver's licenses or state IDs. Because you don't have to have a driver's license. I wish my sister didn't have a driver's license, right? But I still want her to be able to be a juror. And so driver's license or state ID would be the language that we would start to use and start to push with people. You guys probably know Bridget Kelly and Jessica Miranda and those sorts of folks who can take and make that change in the whole state of Ohio.
Thanks for coming, Kari.
Nice to see you.
again. Have you had a chance to read Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow?
I have.
Could you comment on that some and the disproportionate overrepresentation of minorities in the criminal justice system and the poor folks in that system?
Absolutely. If you haven't had the opportunity to read Professor Alexander's book, I would, even if you Google it, you will get some of the best pages and some of the best excerpts about why and how overrepresentation in the criminal justice system of minorities of all kinds, but specifically Black men in the criminal justice system and impoverished people has happened, and how its roots go back further than any of us could ever know, but how we can address it now and change it. So when I walk into, I just thought this today, I was in the jail doing a couple of hearings, and when I walk into the courtroom and meet my clients, and we kind of have this interaction, and I look around, I see that the judge is a white man. I'm a white woman, and the prosecutor is a white man. And today, all but 2 of the locked up clients was African American. And that is not proportional to our population, even a little bit. That's not even close. And so the optics show you clearly the overrepresentation. So it's not hard to see. It's hard to get folks to understand why, and to understand how to stop it, and to understand how over-policing and implicit bias, explicit bias, the training that we do and don't give to law enforcement, and in our school systems, the type of punishment that children of a certain gender and age and race receive, where their counterparts are given more of like a treatment aspect, and they are expelled from school and sent home, or their parents are called and charged criminally because their kid wasn't behaving well enough, or how we don't address when in their 15, 16, 17-year-old way, mental health issues start to arise in our young boys, and how we just think that they're just being buttheads, and we should punish them, and that we can beat this out of them, for lack of a better word, instead of, their counterparts are getting counseling at school, because their schools have counselors. And their teachers are saying, this is weird. He doesn't usually act like this. We should call his mom and ask why. Instead of, we should call the police and have them go see what's going on at the mom's house, or grandma's house, or wherever they might be living. And so that response is something that Professor Alexander speaks about. There's a book also, it's called The Color of Law, that I would encourage you all to read. It talks about how we have to take this on ourselves to talk to our friends and bring this up, and talk to the professionals and hold people accountable for changing their biases and calling out the bias when it is there, and not just not wanting to ruffle feathers or go along to get along and that sort of thing, or say I'll help them next time. And so I could, again, talk about that for hours and hours. To be a little bit delicate, because I am running for judge, so I don't want to opine on any certain issues, but I am certain that on November the 6th, we could have a different conversation about that. So.
The name of the book again, please?
It's The Color of Law. And it has, the front cover actually looks a lot like a municipal court map. It has like some colors all over it, and I think I got it on Amazon for $7.
I have 2 things. Another disgusting thing is bail. We have people in the county jail who haven't even gone to trial yet because they're poor. And we don't have to keep doing that. And the other one is, Dick and Paula and I were having a discussion. Would you pick a jury or a judge? If you're me and you rob stagecoaches and you get caught.
I thought you gave up.
No, I didn't. And would you pick a jury or a judge?
Would I?
Yes.
If you were me and you were robbing stagecoaches. And also, I want to hear what you say about the bail.
Yes. Okay, so let me talk about the bail first. So you're absolutely right that there is a large proportion of the folks that are held in the justice system and in a detention center across the whole country, not the world, just the United States, where we hold people pre-trial, meaning they're not convicted of anything, sometimes not even indicted of anything, just a witness or a law enforcement officer or someone believes they committed a crime. That's enough to hold them. If a judge, a municipal court judge, sets a monetary bail amount on them, and I have had the opportunity to work with the ACLU and some other organizations statewide to try to change the bail statutes for the entire state, because what we want is we want automatic release for certain people. Because bail is intended to have people come back to court. That's the only purpose. It is secondarily to keep people who are likely to go out, not even likely, might go out and commit another crime. That's what we kind of focus on. But the intention of bail from the beginning of time has been make sure this person returns to court. And so somewhere along the lines, we realize people value money. If they have to give money, then they'll come back to court to get their money back. That is how this all came about. And reforming the bail system can happen locally by electing judges like John and Erica and me, and re-electing Judge Yates and Judge Berry, because municipal court judges set the bail every single morning. So those 14 judges are the people who are in control of what amounts are set on certain people, who's automatically released, what a standard bond is, how much is too much, what a reasonable bond is. That is all within the municipal court's purview. So step one in correcting the bail is electing good judges. Step two is supporting your local politicians. Like PG came out and said the city's not going to ask for money bail on misdemeanors that are not violent. There's only about 3 misdemeanors that are violent, so that was great to hear. Because those people should be automatically released and not held because they're poor, not held because they were in the wrong place, wrong time, not held for any reason, because we believe that they'll come back to court. So making sure you support them. And then thirdly, the thing is to make sure that you are paying attention to what is happening in the Justice Center. So sometimes the Justice Center can release folks when the jail is overcrowded. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes my clients are sleeping in the gym on the concrete floor on a sleeping bag at night, and sometimes they're released. And I don't know why there is this kind of oscillating release or not release. And that is a thing that as citizens we need to find out, and we need to hold someone accountable for. Because if the sheriff has the ability to release people on their own recognizance, who's deciding that? How are they deciding that? And why does it only happen sometimes? So that's a, like I said, citizens should care about that. Because we need to make sure that people aren't taken away from their kids and their families and their jobs for a long time pre-conviction, when a lot of those charges end up getting reduced or dismissed anyways.
Jury or judge?
On the stagecoach robberies, I always recommend a jury, unless, my legal advice is always a jury, unless in pretrial communications with the prosecutor and the judge, or all three of us together, or just with the prosecutor, there is an agreement that there has been a mistake in the charge, or there is an agreement that there is a problem with the case. And we are going to let the judge know that, and we agree upon what the problem is, and that we're going to be able to talk about that freely with the judge, because in front of a jury, there are rules about what you can talk about the charge. My recommendation is always to set a case for a jury trial the day of. You can always say, never mind, I'll just have a bench trial. You can always waive your jury. Once you waive it, you can't always get it back. So my advice, again, as an advisor, which is what I am, is to set it for a jury trial.
Marlena?
Marlene.
Go ahead, Marlena. As a fellow first-time woman candidate, there's a lot of talk about imposter syndrome, which touches a lot of female candidates in general, and it's this feeling that somehow you don't belong, like you have no business running, and it's a confidence issue. I was curious if there were any stories that you could or would like to relate from your time campaigning where gender was an issue, whether it was overt or
Yes.
in the subtext, but if there's anything you could speak to on that.
Yes,
I'm
I
curious.
certainly can understand where you're coming from. An imposter syndrome happens, and it in lots of parts of my career, and the public defender's office in general, and being a defense attorney, and all those sorts of things. The pressure gets to you. My favorite story is that when my parents came to help me campaign, we're wearing the t-shirts and I had the badge on, and we were walking around eating the hot dogs at a festival, and this group of mothers with their young children came up to my dad and they said, "Judge, it's so nice to meet you." And my dad is like, he's a handsome man, he's in his 50s and late 50s, and he was like, "Oh yeah, nice to meet you, he's kind of playing it off. And my mom said, "What was that?" And I said, "Mom, that was sexism." It's just how it goes. It's okay, because she hasn't been exposed except for my stories, which I think she thinks sometimes I'm exaggerating. So, but that is my favorite story, right? Because I was with my dad, and I had the button on, and it was just an assumption. And to me, the name recognition is important. And I'm glad that my dad didn't say anything, to offend anyone, because certainly as politicians we don't want to offend anyone. But that is it was so blatant and so interesting. But to your point about being told you don't belong, or acting like you don't belong here, being a young public defender who looks particularly young. Or I've been told that, and being a woman who wears a fake wedding ring when I do a jury trial because people ask, "Why aren't you married?" And that sort of thing. It is an interesting world that I'm happy to talk about for hours and hours, but that is the kind of the conditioning that I have had before this, which I'm very thankful for. Because if not, it would be, I would probably cry a lot more. Unfortunately, that is the world we live in. And I think that we're both doing a really good job.
Carrie, one last question.
Absolutely.
One last question.
Mike was asking you about judge or jury. John mentioned last week something about this perception in the municipal court of a jury tax.
Yes.
Could you explain that a little bit more, because I don't have an understanding of that.
Sure, yes. So when you take a trial to jury, it makes the judge sit there all day for several days. And it makes the court staff sit there for several days. And if you lose that trial and the judge sentences you, because in Ohio judges sentence you, not juries, the judge, there is a feeling that, well, I just put him or her through that whole few days, they're going to be mad at me on top of I've been convicted, and I'm going to get a harsher sentence, and that is what a jury tax is. Taxing the individual who's being sentenced for making us sit through this trial. Because the opposite side of that is a bench trial, which is just to the judge, usually takes 1 to 3 hours. So in an afternoon you can be done, and that's that, and it doesn't usually offend anyone's sensibilities about staying in the courthouse a lot longer. I know John has really strong opinions about jury taxes. John has really strong opinions about most things. And I agree with them all if he asks. There is certainly that perception. In the Hamilton County Courthouse, there is a history of a jury tax. And it is a thing that as public defenders, we talk out with our clients, because I honestly have not seen it that much in the municipal court. Most juries go to jury because there is a real legal issue that we can't work out, because in municipal court, a lot of times what we're trying to do is mitigate what has happened, make sure it doesn't happen again, and make sure that these two people, or whoever it might be, can get along, because they're gonna run into each other again, and it's not as, not the, big murder trials that we usually think of in common pleas. So I would suggest that a jury tax is always wrong, because it's your constitutional right to have a jury trial. Always wrong. And that if you hear of it happening, or if you hear of people who are concerned about it, please let me and John know, because of course we practice there every single day, and we're happy to find out more information about what happened, and explain what happened or address it in some way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful, thank you for being here. I really learned a little bit today. I don't want a jury tax. I don't want to go to court. And they haven't asked me back because I was on a jury twice in 2 years, and they haven't asked me in the last 30.
Jeez.
And they got me early on. I was,
Yeah.
I was the jury chairman. We found him guilty both times.
Happens.
It happens.
That's your job.
You were purged.
You were purged.
Thank you. No, I haven't been purged. They haven't asked me back either, so maybe I did something wrong. Anyway, any other announcements? You've been a wonderful audience today. Thank you for coming. Next week.
Marlena Brookfield.
Yay.
The only candidate for Board of Elections that has responded to an invitation to speak with us. So Marlena, you are our girl.
Thank you,
Marlena. Marlena is next week. Wonderful. Come back. She's really going to be good. Thank you for coming. Come again. Get your